Welcome to the Sower Project, the podcast where Bible meets music, making Christian music Christian and music again, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Eric, the songwriter behind the solo project, Sower. All right, so I am here with my friend Alex Zimmerman, and he's one of the founders of Near Kingdom Records, and he spent many years working in the Christian music industry, a variety of roles with labels. He's a songwriter. He does a lot of different creative projects. In fact, the first time, this is funny, I'm going to mention this, Alex. The first time I really was like, whoa, who is this dude? Was when I listened to a podcast that he produced about a guy who was infiltrated by Chinese spies on Instagram. And I listened through the whole series, and it was really good. It's kind of like, yes, I did. It was like true crime-ish. And I was like, I love that kind of stuff. So then after that, I noticed that Alex had like a collaboration with one of my favorite bands, Valley Heart. And at that time, I was like, who is this guy? And since then, we've talked several times. And I'm just really interested in the work that you've done and are doing now. And I've really appreciated getting to know Alex. So for anyone who doesn't know, can you just walk through, like, how did you get to where you are? Maybe just a quick bio. And how that led into what you're doing with Near Kingdom Records. If you appreciate the ministry of Sower, which is primarily biblical indie rock music, but also content like this podcast, and social media content, then please consider supporting this work by going to patreon.com/Sower Project.
You mentioned, a few things, the Final War podcast of Valley Heart. How did I get to all that? I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, grew up going to a pretty big church there, and grew up playing in the church band, playing in bands outside of church, had an affinity for, rock music, just kind of being the thing that I loved. And so, I took guitar lessons for about a year, maybe less, started writing, started recording immediately. My dad had a Tascam Porta Studio, nice. And it was super cool. And so started recording cassettes, bringing them into my guitar teacher, and he was just like, bro, this is dope, go start a band. And so that's what I did, and played through church band in high school, and played in a band called Ergo We Play in high school, and we ended up winning this national battle of the bands thing called School Jam USA.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was like through NAM, the National Association of Music Merchants. Yeah, they put on like a national battle of the bands thing, and my band that I was fronting won the title of Best Teen Band in the Nation in 2013. And so I was like, all right, dude, I'm a rock star. This is what I'm going to do. And so we graduate high school, and like, nobody cares about us anymore, and the drummer's like, I want to go to college, and the guitar player's like, I want to be a marine biologist, and my parents are like, you're going to school, and I was like, all right. So I made the natural progression to Middle Tennessee from East Tennessee because music, and your first stop is typically in a place called Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And that's like right outside of Nashville, and that's where MTSU, a really big music audio university, is.
What's MTSU stand for? Middle
Tennessee State University.
Okay.
So center of the state. The lore is that is the center of the universe. There's a little corner store there that claims to be the center of the universe. So I went to MTSU, continued to do audio, but didn't get into the program because I just kind of went a little buck wild. I grew up a really good kid, and then got to Murfreesboro, and there wasn't much else to do but shenanigans, and I found my way into shenanigans for the first time in my life. And so didn't get into the audio program because I was just doing so poorly in like every other class. And they had like a candidacy program to kind of like weed out morons. And they said, you're a moron that needs to be weeded out.
All right. So I guess there's another side of the story. So where'd that lead you?
So my dad was like, dude, you love writing songs, just as much as you love like the engineering side of it. He's like, I think you're more into the songwriting side of it, wouldn't you say? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And he was like, well, why don't you apply to Belmont's songwriting program and just see if you even get in. And so I did, and I got in, and said, let's add some more debt to this plate. And so went out to Belmont begrudgingly. I did not want to be a Belmont kid. There was the MTSU kids and the Belmont kids, and they were a very different crowd, and I just did not feel like the Belmont crowd was for me. So I went out there kind of jaded, and all my friends were in Murfreesboro at MTSU, but they'd graduated and they were a little bit older than me, and they moved out to Nashville. So it was like I would go to class at Belmont and then leave the campus immediately and go hang out with my friends from MTSU. But anyways, long story short, get to Belmont, take all the audio classes I can take without getting a degree because I didn't take the physics class, but I ended up getting a degree in songwriting and music business, and left that and said I'm going to keep now, playing in bands and producing and, see what happens. And so that means you're working at restaurants and, taking odd jobs. And so that's what I was doing post-grad. It was just playing in bands. That's when I met Valley Heart. I met them when I was, living in Murfreesboro. There was a pretty big house show scene in Murfreesboro, and Valley Heart came through there, and that's kind of how we got connected. But yeah, I producing, writing, working at barbecue restaurants, and was doing that until I couldn't stand it. I met my wife. I wanted to marry her. I knew I needed to figure something out. My student debt was piling on, and I was pushing it back, and it was finally no, we need some money every month. And so I was like, all right, what do I do with a degree in songwriting? And so that's when I weaseled my way into the label system in beginning of 2019, I think, is when that escapade started.
Okay.
And so, I worked at Integrity Music multiple times in multiple facets, and worked at BMG for a while. I worked at Concord for a while. And then I've just done a ton of work with other indie labels and stuff. But in my time working for these labels, I started my own company, Circleback, which was just me and all my friends that I had accumulated along the way that were producers and writers and, playing in bands. And, Circleback was just kind of okay, I've spent the past 15 years recording and making and playing music and putting it in the marketplace. I've spent the past 7 of those years, working for labels and publishers and distributors and seeing how all that works. I think I can, put all that together and help an artist. And so, that's what Circleback is. And then in all of this, I met a really cool guy named Steve Savolka, who lives out in Oceanside, California. And he had already was starting this really amazing movement out there where they were doing all these worship nights. And he converted his house into a studio, and he was working with all these really cool, cutting edge, indie Christian bands. And we just hit it off, wanting to having a heart for bringing good music to the Christian space, because that has existed before and has always existed, but never has has not always been elevated. And so me and Steve co-founded Near Kingdom, and so Near Kingdom is a lot of things, but we do live shows. We have a studio out in Oceanside. We have a full functioning record label, but it's not a record label in the traditional sense. We're not owning masters or anything crazy like that. We're just helping elevate what we think is music that could impact culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, along those lines, like, what problem were you trying to solve with Near Kingdom? Like, with all of what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, so spending time in, we'll just talk about the problem that I found in Christian music. In Christian music, the pinnacle still is, Christian radio and, CCLI, those two things, songs being sung in church and songs being sung on Christian radio. And it's just like,
explain CCLI real quick, because I feel like some people aren't going to know exactly what that means and what it entails.
Yeah, so it's basically a PRO, and so like what is a PRO is like a performing rights organization. There are three of them that people know of, three of them that exist in America: ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, and they collect performance rights royalties. So when a song is played, they performed live, they collect a royalty and they pay it out to the songwriter. So the church, has always been tax exempt and, operates differently than a regular business. And so there needed to be something in place that operated in a way that would say, hey, churches, you need to be paying the songwriters for the songs that you're playing every Sunday and Wednesday. And so CCLI was created as a way for churches to say, here's money we pay every month to be registered with CCLI. We will report which songs we play every Sunday and Wednesday. CCLI will pay out royalties from a pool of money that all the churches are contributing to based on their membership. So CCLI has a chart, of what is being popular, what is popular in the church. And, as a label or as a worship label or as a worship publisher, you want to be on that chart because that pays out a lot of money, and not a lot of things pay out a lot of money in music.
So basically, so the radio chart, so Christian radio and CCLI is where most of the money is funneled through. And so continue.
Yeah.
You were saying that's the way it works in the Christian industry.
Right. And it's fine, but that market is an old market of like 55-year-old plus, and like those songs were never the songs that impacted me, Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be a part of the sounds and the songs that would like reach people like me and the people that I came from, when I was playing in these bands, and people that would reject CCM. I was rejecting CCM. It was never, of course, back in the day, CCM in 2004 was a lot different. It was Toby Mac and Stellar Card and Hawk Nelson and 1,000 Foot Crutch and FM Static. Like that was cool, and it was on Christian radio. But that's not what like Christian radio is today. And so there needed to be something. I'm working at Integrity Music, and it's great. It's a legacy label, and they have all this clout in the radio and CCLI space. But I'm just like, I'm not working with the sounds and bands that really inspire me and that like speak to me. And so I found that none of the labels really were. But I was meeting all these bands. Basically, I'm trying not to get myself in trouble here.
I get that.
Constantly. In an effort to work with all these indie Christian bands. So there are independent Christian musicians and artists that are streaming, hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners, to millions of monthly listeners a month on various platforms that have no label deal, no distribution deal, no publishing deal, no booking agent, and, they are living in this kind of in-between space. If they're making good money from it, but they're unwilling to let go of the, I don't want to sign a record deal, and they're smart, they're really smart. And so in an effort to get involved with those sorts of artists, all of the Christian labels created their little distribution arm of their company and said, we'll offer you a distribution. And it's a good deal. You know, it's like a low percentage deal where they will do your distribution and stuff. But the problem is they went like sign crazy, and everything they had on their front list that they didn't want to spend time on, they just shoved it over to that distribution side of their roster. And so that roster just got inflated. And this happened is right now happening at every single one of these Christian labels. And so now all those artists that are making really great music and living in that space where they are streaming a lot and need that next step up, now they're even reluctant to sign that distribution deal because that's a saturated space along with everything else. And so I was like, something has to come along to kind of help usher in, you know, what is a new sound in Christian music. And I'm not like trying to like sound prophetic or say that anything I'm doing is groundbreaking or anything like that, but there are new sounds and exciting sounds in Christian music, and I want to elevate them, and there's not a lot of people that are doing that because it's risky and it's scary and it's not yielding a lot of money, and you know, so there needed to be somebody to come through. And so that's, you know, when I met Steve Savolka, he, you know, is a successful dude that, you know, had a heart for this and was willing to kind of help, you know, fund what you know, he also believed in was this next generation of sounds. And so that's kind of what Near Kingdom aims to do, is, you know, foster up young artists that are just starting out, you know, partnering alongside ones that have some serious steam but like don't want to sign to a label deal or don't need to, and then be there to like provide community. They're doing a weekly young adults meeting every week, the Near Kingdom Young Adults out in Oceanside. You know, it's a real community. It's not just, you know, us putting out records. That's honestly like a small part of it. Yeah, I think there used to be a really cool culture around Christian music, around Tooth and Nail Records, around, you know, even Winter Jam back in the day, and like Cornerstone and Furnace Fest, and, you know, all these adjacent spaces. And like, it seems like the mainstream Christian industry has rejected that, and the indies and the kids have had to carry the torch, and like nobody's come in to kind of like leak information over to the kids and say, hey, you can do this. It's like they're kind of being told, or they're not being told explicitly, but it's like the implication is, well, you guys have to figure this out. Yeah. You know, it's like, you're going to start from scratch because we have all this stuff and we don't really have the time, the energy, the money to bring along in any kind of real way this other sound. It's like, no thanks. We just scary. We can't afford to do it. Yeah. It's scary. And it's probably not as profitable. I mean, I was thinking about yesterday, a couple of my favorite bands. I mean, like, I love Valley Heart. Mm-hmm. I love Pedro the Lion. I mean, just those two. And I've been listening to a lot of Moving Mountains recently, which I love their stuff too. I mean, I just got into it recently. Yeah. But I'm like, all of these bands that are kind of my favorite bands are just super small. So I'm like, maybe there is something to the lack of marketability. But it's hard to know if it's that, or if it's that these people have pushed so hard but without the support for so long. You know, like they could never make it over that hurdle to really gain the audience that would really appreciate their music. Yeah. So it's like, I don't really know what came first, but it is kind of weird. I'm thinking like for Sower, like the stuff I want to write, I don't expect it to even have the possibility of ever getting big. And that's okay with me. But I don't want it to be for the lack of like avenue to like, you know, because I'm doing music that I think will change culture. I want people to hear it. But if they just don't like it, fine. And so maybe it's like, it's hard to tell what part
is that versus what part is that there's gatekeepers that are intentionally, and Spotify and like all these, the whole music industry seems to be gatekeeping the kind of music I like. And is it just because they're assuming nobody else is going to like it? I don't know.
They only care about uptime on their apps. They are big tech companies, and the only thing that matters is you are keeping that app open. And so that's how they curate. And a lot of them will let an algorithm tell them, what needs to go on the playlist. And so it's like, I've talked about it nonstop recently, I feel like, but like there is just an influx of noise. Like that is what you're up against. Like you're not up against another indie rock band or like, the other artists. Like there's just this massive amount of noise. And so the gatekeepers can't keep up anymore, so it's hard for them to even, curate when you have the amount of songs that are coming out every day. You're just up against a noise. And so I think that's why the best thing you can do is do what you are doing with Sower, and that is creating a community and saying, hey, there is a thing, there's a sound, there's a subject matter that I'm creating and cultivating here, and I think there's other people that are going to be interested in it. The main pipeline is clogged, and the gatekeepers are not going to bite at this, so let's create a community, let's create collaboration, and bring the people that would actually enjoy this here, manually, which takes time, and takes, time and a lot of effort. But
yeah,
you're seeing that you are finding your space of people that think like you, want music the way that you want music. I mean, what has that experience been like with you, with creating the podcast, creating the band, then the project? Like, what has that been like for you?
Oh, the tables have turned.
Yeah.
It's been very encouraging, because for a long time I was in the dark on Christian music, because I had basically given up. I mean, it was like I was always hoping that there would be music that I liked that was Christian, like, and what I would find is that the bands who had any kind of like quasi Christianity in their influence were like Manchester Orchestra or Brand New or Oh Brother. It was like there was all these bands who were like, obviously were Christians at some point, but now they don't know where they're at. They're out on a limb somewhere, and it's like they're writing really great music, and it's very honest, but it doesn't inspire and encourage me in my faith. So I'm like, but then I would find a band who seems legit about their faith, but the music would sound like it was recorded, by a robot in Nashville. And I'm like, oh man, how can we, like, why does it seem like the more real the message is, the less real the music sounds? You know what I'm saying? And the more real the music sounds, the less solid the message is. And it was just like, I just kind of gave up on it, and I listened to like just anything that sounds good, that, my conscience is clear on. And so when I started really digging a couple years ago, when I was starting to release Sower, I started finding a lot of really, really good bands, and the consistent theme was they had like a couple hundred listeners on Spotify. But one of the benefits of that is I was able to connect with a lot of them.
Exactly.
And so with what I have, the bigger picture of what I'm doing is called Sower Project, and it's like an artist collective for the kind of stuff that I like. And it's a wide range. I use the term, the phrase biblical indie rock, because hopefully a lot of stuff can fit into that. It's not a super tight genre. So we have a Signal group that's like 10 guys, maybe 12, I can't remember. And we kind of like, we encourage each other. We review each other's demos. We collaborate. We give notes and feedback and, tips on promotion and all kinds of stuff. But even more than that, there's probably 50 bands that I've connected with who I think are like, seem to really be growing in Christ and doing good music. I mean, I talk to people like sometimes 1 or 2 or 3 different people in a week where I just found this new band. Like there's this band Windwords that I just found.
Windwords.
They should be way bigger than they are. This guy Michael. Yeah, it's great. So I mean, there's like, I'm finding that there are lots of people doing it, but I'm having to go out and be a detective to find these people. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, kind of similar to what you're doing with Near Kingdom, but I'm trying to like sort of create, like figure out a better way and then invite other people into that so that they see, okay, maybe I can release a song and have 1,000 people hear it rather than just the 20 people that I'm bugging that are my closest friends or whatever. So I'm trying to create a sort of a collaborative effort that can be handed off or that can inspire somebody else, hoping that as I network with people like you have, something like with what you and Steve has happened, and you've got this partnership and more resources to push the ball forward. So you and I are kind of like, I mean, we're doing a similar thing. And so you and I have discussed potential ways to partner and things like that. But it's like, I'm just putting in the work to network, and in doing so, I'm finding there's a lot of really good things that the Lord is doing, and there's a lot of good music, and I'm just like excited to highlight it the best I can. So as Sower's music grows, so will everybody else that I'm networking with, and I hope they all see it the same way. So if I have 100,000 monthly listeners a year from now, all the bands that I'm like networked with will have double their monthly listeners or more, because I'm creating this online growing compilation through Sower Project. So now you can go to the artist Sower Project, and it's all just collaborations with these bands that I've been networking with. Yeah. So, but yeah,
it's
the
awesome.
hope is that somebody way smarter and with way more resources than me will see what I'm doing and either jump in or do something like it.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, like, and that the reason why I asked you about how it's been with that experience is because, like, that's literally the blueprint, you know? Like, that is the blueprint for an indie artist, you know, is, you know, understanding that, like, there are no easy buttons. If you want your target audience, you have to go out there and like create the space for it. You know, you can't just release the song or think that a record label is going to be able to do it. You know, there is no shortcut. And so, you know, I love that you're doing that with the Sower Project. I could think of some other folks that kind of took a similar approach. Would be the Anthem Co. Mass Anthem guys, Joey and Jason. There's some good friends of mine, and they did that like similar like collaborative releases. You know, they started out in the worship space, and it grew and it became massive, and you know, has blossomed into like lots of other things, and like has totally like influenced the Christian music space. And so like it's possible, and a record label doesn't really make that happen anymore because they're not taking anything that isn't already working, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I assume with all the changes in the industry, record labels have lost a lot of money and they've become a lot less risky.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
Yeah. And risk is how you move forward.
Yeah.
You can't move forward without being risky. And they've basically sat back. And my hope is that their safety is creating all this opportunity for us to create a competition that's like, man, we sat on our thumbs too long. Our hands, like, what are we going to do now? Well, too late. You just, you know what I mean? You have like a competitor to Walmart, and it's not just some other company. It's like a whole system that's working.
Yeah.
It's like all sorts of little stores that are just outperforming Walmart. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what's happening, and that those little stores are getting bigger and bigger and banding together, and I think that will happen at a certain point. There will be a tipping point to where all those labels are going to have to go, oh, we were playing it too safe, and I think that the layoffs are, kind of, layoffs and restructuring and things are kind of proof in that, but it's just proof in that there is less money to be made off of your music as far as like a master recording goes. Like it's just a different game now. And so, yeah, I don't hate record labels. I think there's a lot of really great people that work there at record labels, and they do some really great things, and some artists it makes sense for. But as a whole, it's like you have the ability to go get all the same resources that they have. Like, you have the ability to hire the same marketing people that they're hiring, because that's the reality, is they're hiring marketing agencies that exist in the wild to be hired. You can use the same distribution platforms as some of them. You can you can hire out just about everything, or partner up with just about everything that they could do, and be completely freed up from their pipeline. So
I mean, that what you just said is very true, but everybody watching and listening to this is going to say, well, how do you fund that? And that's a big part of what I'm trying to figure out. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, like, originally, early on, when I had this idea for the Seed EP, I was just praying and talking to some family members and friends about what I wanted to do, and somebody thought it was a good enough idea to fund it, like, early on. And that gave me the idea of doing crowdfunding, kind of not traditional crowdfunding, but just tightening my vision, having a very, very clear picture of what I'm heading toward and what I'm doing and why. And then I was able to basically pitch that to a bunch of people and say, if you want to pitch in financially, here's what it looks like and here's what you can do. And God graciously provided probably $20,000 in the first year. And
wow.
So I'm not,
wow.
Yeah, I'm not, like, the success. I mean, I've had, like, I don't know, in the last year just on Spotify, 240,000 streams, which is is nothing compared to a lot of stuff I see out there. But for me, it's huge, mm-hmm. And the reason why is because people pitched money in. And so the big thing is I'm hearing stories and testimonies from people as to how the music is affecting their lives and drawing them closer to the Lord. And they're sharing it with people, and they're working out at the gym, inspired. Like, there's real like connection to the stories that I'm hearing. And so ultimately I'm like, with a Christian message that glorifies God both in the music, which is the art, but also in the message directly, I think there's a better way. I think Christians should want to pitch into this, especially if they want to see the culture become more like the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's no way to do that without music. Mm-hmm. Like, music, I mean, even in Ephesians 5, it talks about the dark times that we're going to face, like, walk carefully, and then connected to that, he says, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to one another. Like, David played music to calm Saul when he was being tormented. And it's like, Christians should be leading the way in that. And that affects a culture massively. And it's like, but the church is kind of like, we're fine. We've got our Christian radio. It's really not doing the good work that it's capable of doing, Yeah,
well, they're not. They are not. They will say that they are, but they are not interested in impacting culture. You can't say you're interested in impacting culture when 90% of your budget is aimed at 55-plus-year-old market. That's not who's driving culture. That's not who's coming up with the new meme. Like, Whoever's coming up with the new meme is who's driving culture. So like if all your budget is going towards Christian radio, you are not interested in impacting culture. You can't argue any other way around that. You're interested in making money in the way that is historically proven that you can continue to make money in this system. I'm saying your audience is getting old and getting on Medicaid and like are becoming less and less of an audience, and so there is this whole other like generation coming up that, according to many articles and statistics that you will read, are more spiritually open than the past 10 years of kids. And the Christian industry has no interest in that, and it's like, what are you here to do? But the problem is, dude, the real problem is why it became this way is because, and this is where I get all tinfoil hat, but
let's go for it.
I don't care, because this is the deciding thing for me. The defining factor is when Sony, Warner, and Universal got involved.
100%. I mean,
that's it.
That's not even tinfoil hat at all. It's not.
When those three became the three primary drivers of the Christian music industry, like, that is when it all became not about reaching the next generation. It became about bottom line shareholders, because let's face it, the Christian music industry is a sliver of revenue compared to the mainstream. So they don't have a lot of margin to be creative and mess around. And if you're attached to Sony, Warner, and Universal, like, you're a little sliver of our grand revenue. You better not screw this up. So Mercy Me is going to have a hit, and Casting Crowns is going to have a hit, and all this stuff is going to work out the way that it is. And what happened is, like, that this has happened over the period of 20, 30 years now of Sony, Warner, and Universal like completely taking over, and so you had all these indie Christian labels that are like mom and pop in the late 90s and early 2000s, like Sparrow Records and all this kind of stuff, and I'm about to make a lot of generalizations and assumptions, and people are going to be like, you don't know these people and you don't know their lives, and I understand that, but they all thought it was this, thank you, Lord, for sending the major label deal to save us, from our debt, as a little tiny indie Christian label. Thank you. This is what's going to spread the gospel even more, to have Sony attached, and like, I get that. But I think if they could have seen into the future here, of like how diluted and just gross it would become because of that, I think they might have made a different decision. But they were struggling. All these indies were struggling, and the majors come in and dangle the cash, and then it becomes about what's worked in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy. I mean, one was I was thinking, like, what if Bethel or some humongous church, excuse me, thought it was, hey, we can help out a bunch of small churches if we just pay off their mortgage for them and take ownership and send in a couple people to help out. Like, and the church is like kind of struggling financially. I can imagine a lot of people saying, like, I know we don't totally agree with their theology, but, I mean, this seems like a new opportunity for us to really move forward. We won't have to worry about that. We don't have to manage our own books anymore. They're going to send in an accountant. And it's like, I could see how it would be tempting, but imagine what would happen to churches that basically sold to some outside organization that they know deep down don't have the same core principles as them. It would, I was like, or
that's
TED
a great
Talk.
Analogy. No, that's a great analogy.
TED Talks, let's say non-Christian altogether, but they focus on good, good speeches and public speaking and What if TED Talks decided to start buying up a bunch of churches because they could give them all the audio equipment, they could train them in production, and they could have all these like high quality speeches and whatnot. I mean, it's just like something like this seems to be happening in Germany from what it's the government. The government is like overseeing the majority of churches in Germany from what I can tell. And there's like pastors who are not even professing Christians who are taking jobs because it's like a good public speaking position that pays well. Wow. And I'm just like, once you sell out, I mean, I wrote a song about this, Corporate Capture, about everything that you're talking about. Once the business becomes the main purpose of anything, then it's goodbye. It's over, basically.
Yeah.
And
and that is what I think Near Kingdom is trying. There has to be the group that's willing to come in and just say, we're here to lose money. And that's how we're going to help.
It's going to take the generosity of people and the risk of people who believe in the vision enough to say, look, we've saved up our retirement. We knew we wanted to contribute to something. We want to give to some foreign missions. We want to give to this. But we see potential in this music thing. And we want to leave a legacy and see what the Lord does to change the whole industry for His glory and to actually impact the culture with good, Christian, Jesus-centered music that's biblical. I think that, I think local churches, I would love for 10 years down the road for local churches to have it in their budget somewhere to support good, solid, biblical Christian music outside of just paying their CCLI dues, and to be creating it themselves too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, 100%. I mean, there's nothing that impacts culture at a faster rate than a song, and now it doesn't even take a whole song. It could just be the chorus, So as a church, as a ministry, if you really want to have that reach, that it seems like a no-brainer to invest in the creation of really amazing, faith-centered art. There are people that want to do that. There are successful people that want to do that. And so, a lot of what we're doing with Near Kingdom is, fundraising and identifying those groups and identifying those people of hey, you've been involved in this organization, and let me show you what we're doing. Because back to what you were saying about what do you do, okay, the artist, knows about the label now. What do they do when they need funding? And then I asked you, what's your experience been like with Sower in the community? And then you talked about the reach. And so I think as an artist, and as an organization, as a nonprofit, Near Kingdom, and what we're doing is you have to document that reach. That reach has to be documented, even if it's just YouTube comment, this helped me through my day, or we saw a YouTube comment on one of our artists, one comment, I think it was a YouTube comment that said that this mother was saying the song was playing when in the hospital, on our Spotify or whatever, when our son passed. This is what he was playing, and this song has comforted us ever since, and all this kind of stuff. Oh my gosh, come on, that's life-changing, important stuff. Document that stuff, keep that stuff on hand so that, and that's what we're trying to do too, so that when you go and you get in front of the successful person that can, help you out financially as a faith-based artist, you can't say to them, okay, when you're going to give me $20,000 to make my record and I'm going to recoup you X amount of dollars. But what you can say is, here is a list of what my songs and what my art is already doing, can you imagine what it could do if there was like some help sprinkled on it? You know, like that's your currency, that's your return as a Christian artist, is not the money. It is this like lives that are being affected, because that's what's going to affect culture, you know. And you know, your job as an artist is to just, you know, go, God, you're going to provide my daily bread today for me and my family. And, you know, also your job as an artist is, I think, to get a job. Like, you know, somebody asked me, like, what's the first thing you would do if you, like, moved to Nashville and, like, to become a full-time artist? Like, get a job. Like, this is a lot easier to do if you can spend some money on it, you know, and, like, it's possible to do that. So, but your currency as a Christian artist, as a Christian organization, your return that you're getting is the lives that are being like impacted. And so I think it's important to document that and keep that on hand, because it's a part of what you're doing, because you get so in the weeds with everything. It's still a ton of work. It's like, you don't have time to like look back. And so then when somebody that sits down that wants to donate and is like, well, you know, what is my money going to? Or like, you know, what are you guys doing? And you're like, I don't even know. Like yesterday I was doing all this stuff, and it's like, no, you can, like, this is having real impact, and like you could be a part of it. I think that's how you know, secure funding as a organization of faith.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I've been doing that myself. And I have a Patreon. Good. And I share testimonies on there and things like that. I think one thing that would be cool, if I could have, you know, every Christian in America hear this conversation, I would want them to hear what you just said. And as a Christian who loves music, and when it impacts you, like, find a way to reach out to the artist and let them know, because it goes such a long way too to encourage them. Like, if there was this communal sort of, you know, aspect to the Christian music that I don't think there's a whole lot of. I mean, there's some in the normal music industry, but if there was, like, if you just said, hey, like, if I got a message today that just said, hey, I'm praying for you and for your music and your ministry, it's been helpful to, you know, for my life, like, I go to sleep listening to it and it gives me joy and peace. I mean, if there was just, I do get messages like that, and it means so much. But I think if we kind of saw ourselves as like we're all part of the same mission, and it's not just trying to get more listeners so that I can feel good about myself, or so I can pay my bills, you know, bivocational, by the way, is I think is the way to go. If you can't depend on a normal paycheck and do this, because it's so hard to get to that point. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, I think that there's like a whole community thing that the church can be doing that I see sprinkles of here and there, and you know, we're talking about it now, but I would love to see it grow. And I'm just essentially praying and working and networking with people just like you're doing to try to push the ball forward and to encourage other people who are already pushing it forward. And who knows, maybe I join and partner and work for somebody else at some point who's doing it. Maybe somebody smart and wise with money says, hey, let me help out with Sower Project, and they become a CEO and it becomes this big official thing, and whatever. I don't care. I really don't care who does it. My prayer is that it happens. Yeah. You know, that we see movement in the right direction. Yeah.
100%. I've removed the, and I think where you're a producer. Like, what you just said is a very producer stance of, like, whatever serves the song is the right thing. Whether it's my part, your part, my grandma's part, you know, apart from Splice, you know, whatever serves the song is the part, you know? And so, like, that removal of, like, it has to be my idea, it has to be Near Kingdom, it has to be Sower Project, it has to be Alex, it has to be Eric. Like, I think that's like a constant thing that I'm staying in prayer and in thought about, of like, you know, I need to be out of the way. You know, yes, I feel called to like help direct these things, but like at the end of the day, I need to be out of the way. And you know, letting other people speak into it, and listening to young people, and I think if more people had that mentality, if more churches and ministries had that mentality of like, doesn't have to be my idea,
yeah,
would be a good thing.
Let's wrap up with a couple things. One, do you have any just like really tight nuggets of advice for Christian bands trying to grow, trying to get their music out there? I mean, you've said a couple things already that are super helpful, but like, what's some of the main things you would say?
Oh, like a garbage truck or something. So I mean, if you're an indie Christian artist, I mean, you know, you need to be on social media, like, no doubt about it. Like, you know that, I know that. None of us want that to be the reality, but that is the reality, is like, you need to be on there, and it doesn't have to be every single day, but you need to be posting things that are in thoughtful, and like, you know, I could give a whole course on things you could do, but like, you know, you need to be on social media, you need to be releasing music often, and don't be so precious about every single song and every single release. You know, like, the song is doing nothing if it's on your Google Drive. You know, it's doing nothing. It's reaching no one, you know, as a voice memo on your phone. And so I understand that takes funding, but if you're sitting on music, you know, waiting for the right time, like, put the music out there, you know. So get on social media, drop as much music as you can possibly afford to drop, alternate versions, and get into the community of the artists that you want to be around, and the artists that you believe that their fans are your fans. Become friends with those artists. Become friends with the artists that those artists are friends with. Do collaboration tracks, like collab in every sense of the way, with like-minded artists and people. Like, it is the secret. That's what I'd do.
Yeah.
And you know.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
Well, what else you got?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, settle into that this is a lifestyle. You know, like, there's no overnight, you know, even if there is an overnight successful moment, your path is like this. Anybody with 12 Grammys will tell you that it has not been a straight line, you know? Like, there was a point after Grammy 4 and between Grammy 4 and Grammy 12 where, like, they thought it was over, you know? Like, that's the reality here. Is so, like, settle into, like, this is a lifestyle of, like, ups and downs and lots of no's, and you have to really like this too. Like, you have to like it.
Yeah.
Or
I always tell people you have to push it consistently for at least a year before you even consider looking at your growth.
Yeah.
Because it's just, and you're going to hit all sorts of like negative points where you're like, man, what's the point of putting out this song if nobody hears it? I mean, that's common, but you have to push past it. So yeah, it's a long game, and you have to decide, is it worth doing? And if it is, then it has to be worth promoting. And if, you know, it just makes no sense at all to pour all your creative energy into a song that you think is really good, and then just not promote it and not do anything about it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all. It's you're burying your talent.
Yeah.
So then
we have the
last
tools
thing
now.
is just tell. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure Alex wouldn't mind
hit me up.
An email or something. But, go ahead and tell everybody just how to find the stuff that you're working on. Like, where do they go?
Yeah, so you can email me at alex@circlebackeg.com, at circlebackeg on Instagram, Circleback Entertainment Group, nearkingdomrecords.com for all the things that we're doing with Near Kingdom. Same thing on Instagram, at Near Kingdom. Yeah, I mean, that's mainly my most active platform is that. My DMs are open if you have any questions, want to talk about music industry. I was talking to my mom about this, like, growing up, it's like our parents had a work phone and it was separate from their home phone and it was separate from when their cell phone came out. And it's like my whole life is on like one device. And so everything I do is happening on the same screen. And so I apologize if there's times that I like miss things. I miss so many things that are like so important to me because it's all happening on the same phone. One of these days, I'll have two phones. But feel free to hit me up, like, and be persistent with me. I want to help. I want to listen to songs. And I'll shoot you straight. Eric knows that. Like, I am one of you guys that accidentally worked for some record labels.
Yeah. Well, hey, Alex, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. It's really cool what you're doing. And anybody listening, share the information you heard today. Like, check out, Near Kingdom, Circle Back, and share this episode with somebody. And make sure that you like this and follow this on whatever platform it is, Spotify, Apple. Give us, a 10-star review if that's possible. I know it's not.
10.
But,
no, they're coming out with they're unlocking a 10-star setting. I just got an email from Spotify.
Are you serious?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm like,
click
he's the
to
insider.
claim. All right, let me claim it. Okay. All right. It
Claim
says I have
it.
a
There
virus.
you go. You just got scammed. So anyways, thank you very much, and God bless you all.